I'm Lisa with Ivy Lane Interiors, and today's project is this antique dresser. I picked it up from a local estate sale for about $100. I had bundled it up with another desk that I found. So overall, it's in pretty good shape. There's just a few areas that obviously have some wear. I love the mirror. You can see how it's just kind of screwed in there. It is a two-tone piece, and so I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to do with it. The caster wheels are cool, but when you move it, they sound awful. So I'm definitely going to have to figure out what to do with those. It has 4 drawers. They're all in really pretty good shape. Original hardware, just needs to be polished up. I do have a few spots on each side that has a little bit of veneer damage, but overall, it's in pretty good shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start removing all the hardware. I'm going to strip it down and see what we have. Sometimes you can date a piece by looking at the back of a mirror. So I'm going to go ahead and refinish the frame anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and take the mirror apart. I'm just prying off the tacks, then I'm going to open up the back and see if I can find a date. So it dates to 1927. So this little piece is 97 years old. Not quite an antique, not quite 100, but maybe I'll round up and call it an antique. But she looks pretty good for being 97 years old. I'm going to start the process with clean stripper. I'm just going to decant some, then I'm going to brush it on, leave it, let it do its thing, and then come back and scrape it off. You can use a putty knife. I usually use my Carbide scraper. I'm going really lightly, and I'm just using it to pull off as much of the finish as I can. I like to try to get off as much as possible because it reduces my sanding time. So I use my Carbide scraper, get it off, then I'll come back and I'll do kind of like an after wash with either like a lacquer thinner or acetone. I was out of acetone when I was doing the top, so I'm using lacquer thinner. A lot of these older finishes have a lacquer finish, so a lot of times it will come off pretty good with lacquer thinner, but I like to use that in combination with a stripper just to kind of get off as much of that finish as I can, because again, it just reduces my sanding time. I'll use a combination of wire brushes, and I use 00 steel wool just to continue to try to get some of that finish off. You can see I still had quite a bit of finish left. This is a really old, thick finish. So I'm going to come back with my carbide scraper again, and I'm going to get the rest of that finish off. Now I'm ready to start sanding. I'm going to start with an 80 grit. You can see there's just some areas there where the finish is still on it. I'll hit those areas with the 80. Again, I'm going lightly. This is an antique. And then I'll move up to 120, and then I'll finish off at 180. And then I'll pause until I decide how I'm going to finish it. Usually on my last grit, I like to go with hand sanding because usually the orbital sanders make those swirls. And so I like to kind of finish off that last grit, just kind of refining that scratch pattern and make sure all of those sanding swirls are gone. It's really difficult on a piece to get away with not having to hand sand. So I use a variety of tools. You can see I'm using sandpaper wrapped around a Bondo spreader. I have a variety of hand tools. I have some contours that I can wrap the sandpaper around, and that helps me get into certain profiles. It's difficult to try to completely avoid hand sanding. You can see my pocket scraper helps me get into some of these small little detailed areas. So just having a variety of tools on hand can help you make this job a little easier. For the spindles, I'm going to try Smart Strip. I've used this before. I picked it up at my local Sherwin-Williams, and it didn't do, honestly, as great on these spindles. I think it's just a really, really thick finish. So I think I probably should have done 2 rounds on the spindles. I think it would have been better because I ended up doing a lot of hand sanding on them. So I use my carbide scraper, try to scrape off as much as I can. But again, sometimes just taking the time to do 2 rounds of stripper, it just sometimes is easier. So I'm going to do the same thing on the drawers. I'm going to go with my Carbide scraper. I'm going to get the rest of that finish off, and then I'll go ahead and do the same protocol. I'll start with 80 grit, sandpaper, move up to 120, and then I'll finish off at 180. There's a couple different blades you can get for the pocket scrapers. You have a triangle one, and then this one is more of a teardrop. So it helps to get into some of those concave profiles, and it works really well. This is a new to me putty. This is by System 3. It's their quick cure wood putty. They sent it to me to try out. So I'm trying it out. It has the putty and then it has a hardener. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You just mix it together. I mixed up way too much. A little bit goes a long way. And so I'm trying it for the first time. It did pretty good. I have to say it took the stain a little bit darker than the quick wood that I normally use. So overall though, I think it worked really well. And like I said, a little bit goes a long way. You'll see towards the end as I start blending these in with my blend all sticks, it worked out pretty good. I'm just continuing to get into all of these small little profiles. So many little details on this dresser. You wouldn't think so. It doesn't have a lot of ornate things, but there's so many small carvings and moldings on this piece. This is a corner sander that I'm using that kind of helps me get into some of those detailed areas that my orbital just won't reach. So you can see there's still a lot of dark areas on this side. It's not ready. So you have to make sure that you sand it well enough. You just got to keep sanding until it's all one color. Some people have asked me, well, how do I know when I'm ready to go on? Well, you shouldn't have any variation in the wood tone. So you just need to keep sanding until it's all a uniform color. I've read a lot about sanding, and the basics consensus is if you're not removing that finish, you need to go down a grit. So if you're at 120 and it's not coming off, just go down to 80. Get the finish off, and then you can work your way back up. So you see how much better that is? It's more uniform. I've got some of those dark areas out. Now it's completely free of finish. I am done with all of that sanding. That was a lot. I obviously I should have done another round of stripper on the spindles. Probably need to invest in like a Dremel or something because that was a lot of hand sanding. But I need another cup of coffee and I need to look at it and I need to decide what color I want to go with. So I'm going to take a break and look at everything, think about what color. I have so many color choices. Do I go dark? Do I go medium? Do I go light? I don't know. But I'm going to take a break and then come back and stain it. So I've decided to kind of go with a little bit of a more of a darker medium tone. So I'm going to go with nutmeg and brown mahogany. So I've got a roughly maybe 3 parts of nutmeg to about 1 part of the brown mahogany. In order to apply the gel stain, I'm just going to do a slip coat of some mineral spirits first. It's going to help the gel stain glide across the surface really well. Gel stain is very forgiving, very easy to apply. You just literally wipe it on, let it set for a couple minutes, and then you just pull back the excess. Once it's stained, I'm ready to do my repairs. This is where I had to put the putty on, where I had some veneer issues. So I'm using Mohawk's Blend All sticks. Usually what you do is you start, they're kind of a waxy type of pencil. And so you're going to start with a light color. You're just going to put it on and then use your finger to kind of blend it out. And then you just progressively go darker until you find something that kind of matches. And then you kind of go back in with some varying colors and you kind of like fill in where the grain is. You're just basically tricking the eye so that it can't see where your repairs are. Once you're happy with it, you're going to seal it with your easy vinyl sealer, and then you can put your top coat on top of that. Once everything's had a chance to dry, I'm going to go ahead and seal it. I'm using Osmo's Poly-X oil. It's their hard wax oil. It's very easy to apply. You simply wipe it on and you wipe off the excess. It provides a really beautiful low luster shine and a very durable finish. I like to put at least 2 coats on the whole body, and a lot of times I'll come back and do a 3rd coat on the top. I soaked all the hardware in boiled water with some vinegar. And now I'm just going to use some Barkeeper's Friend and a very fine steel wool. I use 4 zeros on the steel wool, and I'm just going to polish them up. They look a lot better, but they still have that pewter look, and I'm not really crazy about the pewter, so I'm going to apply some gilding wax. This is a new to me gilding wax, and I really liked it. It dried really well, and because sometimes wax can take, well, it usually takes about 30 days to cure, but sometimes it comes off on your fingers quite a bit. This one cured down really fast. Now I'm down to the final areas. I'm going to go ahead and give everything a really good sand, and then I'm going to line my drawers. After I've sanded, I'm going to clean it out with a 50-50 mixture of denatured alcohol and water. It just kind of helps get rid of any extra contaminants. And then I'm going to use Danish oil on the perimeter and on the bottom and on the sides. And then I'll go ahead and line the inside. So for the drawer liners, I just pull it across the side of the drawer. The big key is you don't want a lot of excess fabric. So you can see I'm just kind of pressing it, and I'm going to figure out where I need to cut it. Hold my finger there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and make my cut. I don't need to trim anything off the bottom because it fits almost perfectly. I'm going to pull back the liner, and I'm going to adhere it to the front of the drawer. That way I have a really nice sharp edge at the front of the drawer. Then I'm going to pull off the excess paper. I'm going to use my fingers just to kind of gently press it into the corners and into the sides. And then after that, I'll use a plastic spreader just to kind of get out any bubbles. Again, this is plastic, so it's a little bit more gentle. I don't want to tear the paper, so I'm going to be really gentle. And then once everything is smooth, then I'll come back with a wallpaper spreader to make sure the paper is really creased into the corners. And then I'll use my X-Acto knife to trim the excess. So those caster wheels sounded horrible. So I went ahead and found some new ones on Amazon, but you could see that they didn't fit in. They were just sliding in and out. So there's actually a two-part area on the caster. So I'm pulling off this area and you see there's like a little bit of tab on them that holds in the actual caster wheel. So what I found out, I'm just going to use my needle nose pliers and I'm just going to push in those tabs, and that will allow it to hold the new caster. So I'm just going to go ahead and reinsert it, go ahead and put in my new caster, and it worked perfectly. So let's look back at the before. This is a really beautiful piece, especially for being 97 years old. Obviously, original finish, needed a little bit of love, but after stripping it down and restaining it, giving it new casters, kind of jazzing up the hardware, here is the finished product. What do you think? I think it turned out really good. I think it's beautiful. I really love the tone. I love nutmeg, but nutmeg can tend to be a little orange. That's where I think that brown mahogany comes in and kind of warms it up a little bit. And honestly, I love the hardware. The hardware, I love gold. I know people love pewter, but I love gold. That gold with that rich wood, yes. It's beautiful. And then the gold, I went with antique brass for the caster wheels. Think it looks beautiful too. Kind of a nod, obviously, going with antique. I don't want anything too polished, too new, because it is 97 years old. So I think it looked really good. But can you believe that shine? That Osmo is such a beautiful finish. Enjoy some of these videos and I'll come back at the end. So here's my repair on the bottom. You can see it blended in really good. So I don't know. I like it. What do you think? How much should I ask for it? I'm going to be listing it soon. So tell me in the comments what you think I should list it for. And thanks so much for watching.